man named Father Joseph Donders tells a story of something he experienced. He was for a while a missionary in Africa and then later came back to Washington to teach theology, especially homiletics. But he tells a story of a friend he had met in Africa who came over to visit him in Washington, D.C. And when he did that, it was winter and all the leaves were off the trees as they are in winter. And so they're driving away from the airport. And they're driving away to the airport, he says, "Oh, it's much worse than I thought it was." And he says, "Pardon me?" He said, "Your trees. I've read about the air pollution here and how it was ruining your trees, but I didn't know that the death and destruction of your trees was so bad." It was his first time out of Africa, in a lush portion of Africa where he lived, and he just didn't understand that they had leaves on their trees all year long. And when he saw no leaves on our trees, he thought they were dead. Well, there's two men looking at the same exact objective reality. One sees dead trees. He's got evidence. The other one sees trees that are preparing for spring. A little dormant right now, but pretty soon, in a couple months, spring comes and they'll pop forth with new life. Completely different perspective, looking on the same thing. I bring that up because Baruch, who was a prophet during the Babylonian captivity, comes and says, in a way, a similar kind of thing to the people. The valleys shall come down, the valleys shall be filled in, the rough ways straightened, and you're all going to go back to Jerusalem. Yeah, okay, sure. Except, it was pretty close to the time when he made that the Babylonians were then overtaken by the Persians, and the Persians let the Israelites go back free to Jerusalem. So the prophet saw something that the people did not. He declared to them some hope in the midst of their misery. And the same thing can be well true for us, that some of us are struggling. I won't even give you examples about the corruption and the violence and tearing down a society that's going on now. We know enough about that. But some of us personally are struggling with our own failures, our own disappointments, our own broken relationships, things that are making us anxious and worried about many things. And we too could well use a word of hope and believe it. John the Baptist in today's gospel affirms that God indeed, back in his time, was doing something new, and he affirms for us as well that God is doing something new. We're not dead trees. We're trees from whom new life can spring forth. We need to believe it. We need to be open to it. And so, John the Baptist says again that the rough ways shall be made smooth, the valleys filled in, and the mountains brought low, to straighten our way to the Lord. There's some hope in that no matter what we're struggling with, we don't have to be stuck in it anymore. Give us some hope and to look to and to trust in the Lord. But you see, the obstacles that are keeping us from the fullness of life aren't necessarily mountains. We can fly over them, or valleys. We can drive through them, or rough ways. Get a four-wheeler. Oh, that'll do it. They're not obstacles out there only. The more important ones are obstacles within us. Things that going on inside of us that make our life rougher. Or, for example, we could be holding on to resentments and the ways that things that have happened to us that have been unjust, or people have treated us, or ways that we've been hurt, and we're holding on to those resentments, and even if we don't think we're ever going to get even, they're just kind of weighing us down. Well, nobody's going to take that away from us, unless we let go of it. Unless we let go of it and say, what happened in the past, I need to let go of it, and I need to move on. I need to forgive it. And I'm not going to let it weigh me down anymore. I still have a life to live, and I want to live it. Or some of our failures, some of the things that we've had, whether it's a failure in a relationship or failure in a job or some other way, we can just say, I'm nothing but a failure. I'm not going anywhere. Why would anybody want to be with me, hire me, or whatever it is? It's like, well, God hasn't given up on us yet. Why would I give up on myself? We need to believe that God still, as in with Baruch and with John the Baptist and many others, come to say that God is a God of hope and love and power. And he's coming to us. We need to prepare the way of the Lord by letting go of those things that are keeping us from the fullness of life. Addictions that we have. I just can't get over it on my own. Good thinking. You ever heard of the 12 steps? My life is out of control. I need to give my life over to power greater than my own. Yeah, good thinking. We get trapped in our own addictions. Whether or not there's a group for that addiction or our own compulsions, it's just there. We need help to get out of it. Prepare the way of the Lord. And we would do well to look into our lives to say, what is keeping me from living the life that God has made me to live? And what do I need to do to live that life better? It's something that nobody else can do for us. And if we want the kind of life that God has made us to live, there are things that we need to do to change the way we live, the way we think, the way we act, the way we talk. Simple things maybe, sometimes not so simple, but ways which are more life-giving. We are not dead trees. We are trees that still have life which can spring forth. God welcomes us to a new way of life. We need to welcome God into our lives.